Hi there, my name is Alex Snelling. I'm an editor from London, and this is a short guide to long-form audio workflow in Premiere Pro, from import all the way through to exporting an AAF into Pro Tools. So an ALE, or an Avid Log Exchange file, is a spreadsheet document and is the most common way of transferring metadata from the dailies supplier into the edit suite. I've got one here and I'm going to import that into Premiere. And that creates a bunch of offline clips with the metadata already attached. So now I'm going to choose Link Media and navigate to the media files supplied to me from that same dailies house. So that's my shoot. I happen to know that there are two poems being spoken and the audio is being recorded independently. So I've got a bunch of audio files here and 2 or 3 cameras recording it. So I'm not going to focus on the multicam syncing. So I'm just going to go quite quickly here. I'm going to choose create multi-camera source sequence for this entire bunch of clips. I'm essentially going to use timecode and I want to create different clips for each take essentially. And I'm actually going to use the default settings. So I'm going to click OK and I will get a message saying I could not synchronize one or more clips in the current selection because a match could not be found. That's fine. Because I know that they were creating some B-roll, some kind of behind the scenes stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new bin for those, call that B-roll, get that out of the way. And what I'm left with here is a bunch of multicam source sequences. So in Avid terms, these would be your subclips really. And notice that they were all created together. If you're on a Mac, which I am, Command double click a multicam clip and that will dive inside the multicam source sequence. As you can see, in this case, this has got 5 audio channels. On the audio meters, you can see there's actually 5 output channels from this clip.
You gotta be okay with the cold and ready to strike when the iron's hot.
So that's great, but one of the reasons I'm doing this is to demonstrate how to access and control all of these different ISO tracks. If I double click this clip up here into the source monitor, but as you can see, I've got the 5 channels coming out of this here as well.
First, you're gonna have to leave home.
Now, a lot of assistant editors tell me that their editors only want to be working with 1 or 2 channels, maybe just the mix track. So there's a couple of ways to work. If I just create a sequence very quickly, one way would be to just use the patch controls down here to control audio 1 and audio 2, but we're basically defining our workflow for the entire edit now. So I know that a lot of editors get a little bit annoyed about having to constantly worry about, you know, the patch controls over here. So an alternative way of working is to select all these clips, right click, choose modify audio channels. I will go through this menu in more detail in another video, but in this case I'm just going to go quite quickly. I'm going to essentially just reduce the output of all of these clips to 2 channels coming from outputs 1 and 2. So essentially what I'm doing is hiding the other channels. So now what happens when I load one of these clips into the source monitor, as you can see down here on the
and action.
That's now only got 2 outputs. And if I have a quick look into all of these clips now, you'll see it says multi-channel mapped to 2 monos. So basically I've got 2 mono clips or 2 mono channels coming out of the end of every single one of those clips. So that's what we want. But the important question is, how can I access the other channels? So essentially now I'm just going to be working with 2-channel dual mono clips throughout my edit, and I'm just going to simulate an edit by dropping a bunch of clips into my timeline and then topping and tailing them. I'll go into this process in a lot more detail, but I'm just going to simulate an edit and speed it up. Okay, so there's my edit. Essentially what I've got here is a bunch of multicam source sequences in a timeline, and those are my subclips, those are my dailies, and here are channels 1 and 2. In other words, mix left, mix right. Now, of course, at times, the editor or the assistant editor is going to need to access other channels. So how do we do that? So if I press match frame, it does, in fact, do a match frame, but unfortunately, the match frame has this audio disabled, which is what you saw me do earlier. You can see there's 2 extra channels there, but there's nothing on it because I disabled those channels. So that's not going to work. So what I need to do is command double click or control click on a PC, and that dives me into the multicam clip. And now what I need to do is I need to match frame from this by pressing F, and that brings me up the correct playhead position on the original source clip, not the multicam source sequence, but the original source clip. Now I just need to come back to this sequence here, and if I just turn on audio 3 and 4, which is already on by default, and I press overwrite, that will bring my audio from the source with the extra channels enabled. And you should be able to see quite clearly that the waveforms are in sync. And then here you can see it says channel 3 and 4. And then I just trim this clip to wherever I need it. So there is another way to do exactly the same thing using another method, and that's directly in the timeline. In a lot of ways, it's a lot simpler. The way to do that is to right-click on a clip in the timeline and choose audio channels. And from here, you can just choose which source channel you want to feed down into, in this case, track 2. So it's almost like rewiring your patch bay. So if I click 4 there, watch the waveform change as I click OK. And as you can see, I've now got channels 1 and 4 playing in there. Now, if I wanted to actually have more channels, I could just make a copy of one of these clips and actually then do what I've just done, and thereby accessing more and more different channels from the ISO. So that's how you'd access the ISOs within Premiere Pro. But how can we guarantee that all of those audio channels are going to be accessible and available in Pro Tools? So we can do that in Pro Tools using the field recorder workflow, and I'm just going to show you that very quickly. So I'm going to call this rough cut 001, and I'm going to come to the export menu and I'm going to choose AAF, and essentially I'm going to click enable because we want to break the audio out to mono to go to Pro Tools. It will only really work if you click breakout to mono. I'm going to choose, in this instance, embed audio and AIFF, and I'm going to mix that in my video so I can actually get a picture reference as well. And I'm going to export my AIF into a folder that I prepared called Pro Tools, so that will create an AIF. I'll speed this up and then see you when this is done. Okay, so that's done. if I just jump to the Finder here. So here is my exported AAF with the video reference as well. So the easiest way to get this into Pro Tools is just right click and choose Open with Pro Tools. That will open up the AAF. I want to put it in that place. It's going to be creating a session called Rough Cut 001. That's going to go in there, and I'm going to click through these options here in terms of importing the session data, and that is my edit. So I hope you can recognize there's my timeline in Premiere Pro, and there's my Pro Tools session. Just notice that I didn't actually have to process or do anything to the multicam clips. The actual export process for the AAF takes care of business for you getting into Pro Tools. But let's have a look at what data we've got now.
The sky blinks back 1 billion eyes in a...
As you can see, it's in sync, which is always good. But what I want to show you now is how to get all of the ISO channels from the original external audio recordings into Pro Tools. So what I need to do is I need to right click on one of these tracks here and select that as the field recorder guide track. And then I need to select an area to search. So I'm going to click plus here and I'm going to navigate to this folder here, which has got the original audio files. So I click save and index on that. I then come to the same track and choose expand channels to new tracks. Now there's various different options here, but if you choose time code, this should work. So now you see all these multicolored clips here appear to be in sync, and they've been cascaded down. And if you look closely, you can actually see that we've got the mix left, mix right, boom, lav, essentially all the different channels from the ISO recordings from the external audio recorder. You don't actually have to bring them all in like that. There is an alternative, which is to, I just pressed undo there. There is an alternative to actually choose matching field recorder channels and actually just expand one clip at a time. So let's say, for example, you just needed this particular track. So you can do it like that as well.
Come back with a compass and point. Look, it is just over there, just over that mountain, just over that ocean.
So I hope this has been useful, and it's gone quite quickly. There's a lot of detail to take in, but it's essentially a proof of concept that as an assistant editor, you don't need to be overcutting all of these audio channels in order to get them into Pro Tools. They should be accessible as long as that metadata is retained from start right through to finish. And I've essentially just shown you how to do it. The most key bit of metadata is, of course, the time code. So I hope that was useful, and I hope it answers some of the questions that might have been outstanding about audio workflow, in particular getting into Pro Tools and accessing all of those ISOs. It's a complex issue, and I hope that this will help explain it to you and your clients. I will be doing more videos like this occasionally, so do subscribe and keep in the loop. Thanks for watching.